Is it murder? Yeah. But, there is a range of punishment for a reason. And to ignore the facts and just put a blanket policy out is idiotic.
What you do, what you feel that you need to do, does not belong in the district attorney's office. Go be a defense attorney. Go work for the ACLU. Go work for whatever you want to. But don't do it here. Because what would happen if police officers started taking their political ideologies and thoughts and start invoking them on the streets?
And that's my point. A courtroom should be open. Anybody can come into that courtroom. They can sit in there. There's a reason there's a bar. And there's a reason why the audience sits there and the lawyers and the prosecutors and the judge are the other side of that bar. There's a reason why the judge will tell the court reporter, we are on the record, we are off the record. There's privileged information, there's medical information, there's information that could get somebody hurt. She's put me in danger, by the way.
Blu Wolf Podcast.
This episode of the Blu Wolf Podcast is brought to you by Blue Line Professional Inspections. Check out blproinspections.com or call 210-771-8831 for all your inspection needs, including home inspection, wood-destroying insect inspection, sewer drain inspection, and on-site water treatment inspection. Blue Line is a first responder-owned business.
Hey, welcome to the Blu Wolf Podcast. I'm Willie Cantu. I'm here with David Sapansky. We appreciate you all watching and tuning in every time as we try to bring in interesting, informative topics and with the right guests and things like that. I want to first give a shout out to Rolando Pablos for running a good race, giving it a good shot, mayoral race, mind you. He was one of several, 27, I believe, candidates. And ended up being in a runoff as number 2 against Gina Ortiz-Jones. I was hopeful mostly that he would win. I believe he is the best candidate for public safety and a lot of other things. And but I was, as my pessimist side was like, well, we're in a blue city and a blue county. But when we spoke to him, because we brought him on here on the podcast, I mean, he really impressed us and informed us of what his vision was for San Antonio. I know people will probably say, hey, congratulations, Gina Ortiz-Jones, and pray for her to do the right thing. I don't want to sound like an asshole, but lots of times I do anyway. But I'm not happy that she won because I do believe that she's got an agenda. I don't think that she's here to do the right thing for the city. And definitely not the police department, because she comes from this side with ideologies to destroy the police. If she proves me wrong, that's great. We will do a podcast and I will say I was wrong. There's no problem with that because it's a win-win either way. But I do want to give a shout out to Pablos, Rolando Pablos. I won't apologize for the SAPOA, San Antonio Police Officers Association, for not getting behind you because I'm not part of them anymore, nor are we. I wish that they had from the very beginning. There was information. I heard they had the data that Mr. Pablos was going to pull one of the two. And I wish they would have stood up and gotten behind him because they would have gained a lot of ground there. Not to mention, once he did end up in as number 2, then they would have gained so much more credibility with that. I didn't like that they do that. And from the other side, I'm hearing that they didn't do much to rally the officers behind them. I heard a bunch of police officers that could have voted did not vote. And you know what, man? If things go bad because of this new mayor, a lot of you guys that are affected by it, and then we're not immune from it. We have to hope that they don't come after our pension. Is the other side of it. But like I said, I wanted to give a shout out to Mr. Rolando Pablos there. I also want to give a shout out to Sergeant Self Alvarado of the SAPD. He recently had, did you hear? He recently had a massive stroke.
I didn't.
Yeah.
Sorry to hear that.
Yeah, he had a massive stroke. And he's in the hospital right now. It appears he's definitely, not appears, but he definitely has a loving wife. They're rallying behind him with his family. My mom had one years ago. I know how bad it is and what it looks like. It's very scary. Maybe the good thing is that he is a young man. He's younger than we are, that's for sure. he's a veteran, so seemed like a pretty tough guy when he was working. And just want to let you know, Seth, I'm going to tag you or tag your wife in this. Hopefully you see this part of it at least, and know that we're thinking about you. We're praying for you. We hope you get better. And like I said before, keep it in your mind to stay strong. It's really hard for that. But getting back with the podcast here, we have, I don't want to keep you waiting here, Mr. Jason Wolff. Now, mind you, it's ironic, Blu Wolf Podcast, but it's...
There we go.
Yeah.
Add one more F on the end of that, and it would be my podcast.
That was half of
Call the wolf, watch the wolf. Right?
Yes, that was half of the reason that we have you on. I'm kidding. But it's Wolf with two Fs.
Wolf with two Fs.
Yeah, with two Fs. And we're really happy that you agreed to this, number one.
Happy to be here.
Yeah. So you are a defense attorney now with the Courthouse Law Group?
Yep, that's where I'm at. That's
Okay.
where
How long have you been there?
I've been there a little over 2 years. Been doing practicing law for 21 years. I started out at the Bexar County DA's office, started with Susan Reed was who hired me, spent 6 years, made my way up to felony, and then was really kind of disgusted with what was going on in one of our county courts at law. I was a prosecutor there, and it was the biggest it was the biggest backlog docket there was, and I would announce ready for the trial, and the judge would be in chambers doing weddings and not bringing a panel. So I spent countless hours looking at every marriage certificate that existed for 2 years in Bexar County, and I figured out this guy was making over $50,000 a year doing weddings while at his first job doing his second job. So I ran, and that's why I ran. I'm under no illusions that I didn't win because I'm Jason Wolff. I won because, unfortunately, the cycle of the politics and the elections that happened in Bexar County, I got swept in and I got swept out.
Yeah.
And that's me.
So a one-termer?
No, 2 terms.
It was
2 terms, 8 years. Yeah. So vested judge. I could, not do defense work and stop doing these TikToks and all that crap and go be a visiting judge if I wanted to. But that's,
and the reason I asked, and I should have known this one, especially when you said 8 years, because recently I heard some other people talking. We were talking about politics and offices and whatever, and I believe it was Nico that said it. If you're going to come in with wanting to do the right thing, be behind those things, as you should, as everybody should, be prepared to only do one term.
yeah.
So apparently you did it right to get it back in and be elected again. So.
It's you would think that I did something right, and I did. I took it from the biggest backlog court to the most streamlined court within a year. I had over 40 jury trials that first year and took my trial docket from 1,600 cases to 160 cases. So I did everything. I did everything right, but I didn't win my re-election because people researched who the candidates were for County Court of Law number 2. Everything that happens above is really what controls what happens down below, unfortunately.
We saw that in 2022, right? I mean, the all of the races were pretty much done after early voting. It was very, very sad.
I lost, and then, I had a little bit of campaign money left, and I said, why not? I'm a gambler. Shoot, let's just go ahead and put it in there and see what happens. I didn't really have any expectations of winning, and I didn't, and didn't even come close.
And there's an irony, a sad irony there too, because people either in any job, but judges, for sure, and then candidates that run our city on the county side and in the city side, people really should take more time to just figure out who's going to be in those positions. Yeah. And it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. You just want the people that are going to do best for San Antonio, sustain growth, raise whatever the income you can, the medium income, make sure the people on the bench are as apolitical as they possibly can, or do exactly what the Lady Justice does, is have those blinders on and make sure things are handled correctly. And unfortunately, that doesn't happen enough, right?
It would be nice if you didn't have to choose a political affiliation to run as a judge. Judges really are supposed to follow the law. They're not supposed to legislate from the bench, but Texas, you have to choose an affiliation. You do. Have I leaned Republican in my life? For sure. But my uncle, Nelson Wolff, Democrat, cousins Democrat, we all show up at Thanksgiving and we get along, and we always have. But when it comes to judges, it should be just following the law, which is why I'm not really looking to run again. Even though people think I might be, or I'm setting myself up for running, I'm not. I'm just pissed off at what's going on in the state of the justice system. It's not my intention to run again. That's not what I'm doing here. And it's not about picking a political party and say support this person or not. somebody reached out to me today and said, hey, who are you supporting for the 227? And I said, I'm not really. That's not what this is about. I think I have a bigger voice by not running, not being a sitting judge. I'm allowed to do this kind of stuff. And I'm taking risks by calling out administrations and calling out judges. And I'm trying to do it in a way that's fun, but also can be serious at the same time.
It seems to me that, when you do it, you're trying to bring just some serious perspective to the situation. Willie and I have done that too. But people on the opposite side of that don't have the ability to be objective. So they kind of get angry with you for saying what it is you're saying. But most of the time it's spot on and everybody else agrees with you. And that's kind of the same argument we've made in the police department, at various different podcasts about various different things, which we don't need to rehash now.
Well, for our listeners, I just want to bring up, that voice that you have and you try to amplify is through TikTok mostly. Am I right?
It is. And, frankly, I just did a web page because I'm a lawyer. I need to bring in business. And so they suggested we'll do a couple of TikToks. And I had my own perspective on TikTok, this Chinese spy device.
That too, yeah.
We're all on it,
right?
Yeah.
I'm going to trust our intelligence community to make sure that my TikTok app on my phone doesn't blow up the world.
Right.
If you start getting calls from Beijing, you might
really. But I'd never really even done anything with it, and it's a pretty intuitive app.
We're big advocates. That's a great way to communicate nowadays. People don't have to go through the general, bureaucratic BS. You see a lot of musicians becoming known, comedians. It's
because it's quick. It's real quick.
It is. I went out to Los Angeles when I was 19. I went to college for a year and said that's enough, and I went out to LA to be famous. And I had to get an agent and a manager. And what did I do? I waited tables and I did door-to-door sales for most
so
of
did
the time.
Tom Cruise and everybody else.
Exactly.
Until they got the break. So I heard you were part of the Screen Actors Guild, right?
Yeah. It was, I think the only thing that made the movie was one line, and it was, "I think so, sir," and that was it. But no, it's nice to have the ability where I don't need anybody else's permission. I don't need an agent. I don't need a manager or producer. I can take what's in my mind and I can put it out there, and it's a platform. And my goodness, I had no idea that I would get the response that I got.
So how many followers do you have?
It's slow, and I see some people that have 1 million followers. I started out, 0 followers, and I guess over the last maybe 5 months, I have about 3,500 followers.
Okay.
Which isn't bad,
You're better than we are.
The pains are growing to getting people to want to listen to what you say. But I can say this, I had, we were talking a little bit ago, right? I don't probably have met you, but I just don't remember.
Yeah.
When we talked the other day, we had a friend that put us in touch. And, I came across a TikTok. And one of those TikToks was about you talking about young attorneys, coming out of law school, ready to take on the world, getting into the DA's office, being put into misdemeanor court, and then you're just in the deep end of the pool, and they really don't have a lot of direction, a lot of mentorship, and it's just one of those things that either frustrates them or doesn't help them grow, or doesn't help them grow into better prosecutors and or even stay there, right? Yeah. So that's one of the first videos I saw of you, and then I started watching more, and I said, yeah, we want to see if he'll talk to us. So thank you for coming.
I appreciate that, and the reason I put that video out there is, I just left court one day, and case had not been filed month after month. It was just a chicken shit case, but just a crappy case. And I was angry. And these misdemeanor prosecutors are not getting the training that I got, not even close. And, they're like pit bulls put into a courtroom without any training. And of course they need to represent the state. And they need to be serious about their job. But, my piece of advice would be, not all defense attorneys are full of shit. We actually, if we work together, if the justice system works properly, we are giving you information to make you more informed so that you can make a good decision on your case.
That's what we should all want, right? We should all want justice, right? I mean, regardless of how it gets there, right? So we jumped right into this, but I didn't want to omit, you went to UT, graduated from law school in 2004?
Born in San Antonio, 7th generation San Antonian, I think.
So you said your uncle's Nelson Wolff, that's San Antonio political royalty there.
I mean, he's been around, we run in packs. Yeah. Obviously, terrible joke, but
he seems to lean left.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So you said you have...
Yeah, for sure. He's Democrat, for the most part. He's
county commissioner, county judge. I mean, he's done it all, right?
Well, you got Kevin, Kevin was county commissioner.
Is that his son?
And he's Republican. You know, when I was running, I always had to differentiate myself, and I'd have to say things like, "I'm not Streetcar Wolf," and "I'm not Whataburger Wolf," unfortunately.
But you know what I love that you said is that you guys get together on holidays and you just have like family dinner, right?
Yeah.
And you think that would be easy to do, but it's getting more and more difficult to do it because of some of the messaging that's coming out. But that has really nothing to go here. So you were prosecutor for 10 years.
Prosecutor for 8, ran for judge in 2010. Served 2 terms, was elected twice.
County Court 2?
2018.
You actually unseated the longest running county court judge who was in 1989. We graduated from the academy in 1989.
Judge Canales.
Judge Canales, well known. I've been in this.
Great
we've
guy.
all been in this court.
He's a great guy. I mean, we
eventually
really get along. We actually have the
killed,
same birthday. We're actually same birthday, which is kind of crazy.
But I thought that was an interesting thing. So yeah, good for you.
Well, I saw, speaking of terms and, being a judge, you were rated top in I don't know what the format it was, but in the top like 10 or so
Was it
out of 50.
like 2017, right?
It was a poll that the defense bar did, and I wish that they would bring it back because
They don't do it anymore.
They don't do it anymore.
Wow.
And they take attorneys, and only attorneys that practice in front of the judges would they give a response. Rated you on punctuality, knows the law, impartiality, overall performance, temperament, those types of things. And out of 51 judges, I was ranked number 10. So I was really proud of that. And I wish that they would bring that back. Come on, SACLA, bring it back. The community needs it.
Yeah.
And interestingly
What do they-
enough,
what
I
do
put
they
this
call
on my
it?
video, but SACLA, San Antonio Criminal Defense Lawyers Association.
Okay.
And the judge that was on the bottom of that poll is still on the bench.
Yeah, well, I was going to ask you, but
I saw you say
gonna
Crazy.
say that, really. But we'll leave that nameless at this particular time.
Yeah.
But so you got a great, an interesting career, man. You kind of go out to LA and follow your dream, and decided to come back here. You went to UT. A lot of UT fans in San Antonio.
Graduated from UTSA. Love UTSA. I had to get my undergraduate for
UTSA here too. So did my wife. She graduated from there.
So some of your TikToks are about procedural things, and some of them are about just kind of being a little disgusted with the processes. We wanted to talk a little bit about some of those frustrations with the current DA.
Okay.
And one of your TikToks said, "I want to put this to a vote, and I need you all to vote. I think that since he's going to step down, or he's not going to seek another term,
Right.
why don't you step down, go do what you got to do."
Yeah.
And so we vote 2 and 3 in case you're looking for that.
Nice.
That should be good. But with Joe, we probably have very different and similar kind of reasons for that, right? I think Willie was talking to you a little bit before we got on camera. He's very light on crime. He's not a hard-hitting DA. He's kind of, from our standpoint, he and his former first assistant, Christian, whatever his name is, there's a little bit about the Wren Collective in there. We can talk about it if you like. But for me, as a longtime drug police officer and then commander of those drug units and gang units, you kind of minimize, they use their ideology, their political ideology, in order to do things and invoke policy. What I mean by that, not to talk politics, but started doing away with underground cases, and then it went to 1 to 4. We're talking about Schedule I drugs. And I just thought that was very interesting, because to me, I think when you start using policy to circumvent the law, it has to be because that's your personal beliefs. We've seen some of that in the police department. We've talked about that. The chief of police, probably at the behest of the city manager or somebody else, has taken policy and put it into place. It clearly allows police officers to do X, Y, and Z, pursuits, things like that. And so when it comes to the DA, what's your impression of him? Because you knew him before he was a DA, right?
Sure. He was a defense attorney, longtime defense attorney. He would, I'd see him, when I was on the bench, he would come in, always very professional, and I always had a high opinion of Joe, and I think he had a high opinion of me as well, and I think that's why he brought me into the office after I lost my bench, and I was thankful for that, for sure. And, I have mixed feelings about that. Talking out of class, or whatever that expression is difficult sometimes, because I'm thankful for having been given a job.
Sure, of course.
But I was through Susan Reed. I'm friends with Nico LaHood. Him and he was a defense attorney when I was a young prosecutor. we would hang out and we'd play cards together, and we got to know each other along the way. When I was on the bench, that's when he won, and he was doing his first term. And I think very highly of Nico, and I think he was certainly capable, and I was disappointed that he didn't win. Didn't know much about Joe, but was brought into the office. And, you know, I had to learn how to be a prosecutor again. And it took a long time to get the tools and get the logins. And, you know, it was a pretty rocky start. But over the course of his administration, he would tell us that he would support us, that he would back up our discretion. And if we made a decision, then, you know, he would stand behind us. But I just saw over and over again how that wasn't the case. And decisions were made from a political standpoint rather than what justice called for or what the facts of the case called for. And in my opinion, it was more about keeping face than it was making the difficult, hard decisions that a district attorney should make.
Well,
And I don't want to run. I'm not running for district attorney.
But you should consider it. You should consider it.
I was going to say, you know,
I will say this, the likelihood of Joe stepping down is not going to happen. We don't have such thing as recall votes here in Texas. It's a complaint that's made by a citizen that lives in the district, and that starts the process, and then it's a judicial review, and you know, they examine, okay, did he commit a crime or is he a drunk or anything like that? I'm certainly not making those allegations. I'm just saying he's inept and he was promoted to the point of
well,
incompetence.
he's you know, and we can't, I don't want to ignore the elephant in the room in a sense, or the political side of it. He is Soros bought.
He is.
He got over $1 million more than the DA in Travis County.
It's the only reason
Yeah.
to beat Nico.
Right. And so in the primary, obviously,
Yeah.
Nico was a Democrat too. He just wasn't the right Democrat. So along with that campaign is to me, they bought him. So he has an agenda,
Yeah.
which is what we're talking about here.
Yeah. You know what? Actually, George Soros, if you give me $1 million, I'll run as a Democrat.
There you go.
Give me $1 million, I'll run as a
Right.
Democrat, and I'll let everybody know.
Let's even it out.
And we'll see who
$1.5
shows up.
million is what
I
he
would
gave
like
Joe.
to take
We'll
that
s-
medal off
we'll
George
see who shows
Soros'
up.
neck that they gave him for that medal.
Well, that
Yeah.
was but so and then David touched
I
on
don't want
it.
to blow dart in the neck, so I don't want to talk too much about George Soros.
Right. Well, I think right now is the time to do it.
Yeah.
But the other side of it is, I believe, and maybe whether you want to share it or not, I believe he's still being guided by the Rent Collective, because I don't think that Joe was woke enough to do what they really wanted him to do. So
Joe is being guided by whichever way the wind blows, and he thinks will benefit.
But you know who the Rent Collective
Yeah,
is?
I do, and I hope when I
he's-
go home, I don't watch the news. I don't pay attention to the political stuff. My wife's favorite show is Law and Order, and you know I have to. Yes,
They've
okay.
even gotten political.
Right?
Yes,
No,
they
it's
have.
just I try to detach, and it's great. It's a
I
good
used
show.
to. So they started,
Yeah.
you know, depicting really bad things with the police.
I just have detached from that. So do I know about that whole texting back and forth? Yes, I do. And is it disgusting? Yeah, it is. And that's my point. He's got to have independent judgment, and I just don't think.
So if you take that and then you put all of that aside, you just kind of look at what's the landscape, right? He lost so many good tenured trial attorneys under his.
That
under
office
his-
has been decimated.
So we knew a lot of them, right? I was operational for many years.
And that's not from you saying anything. This was going on
As a
before.
matter of fact.
Yeah, it's a matter of fact.
When you lose that kind of experience, it's hard to get it back, right? And so, but then he also did what I just said, used this like policy to kind of circumvent, like kind of decriminalize drugs. That probably was from Christensen or whatever that guy.
Selective enforcement.
And then, and I met with him as the commander of narcotics a few times, and his team, and they were always very cordial, you know. But at the end of the day, you could see what they wanted to do was what was going to be done, and so you know, it's really hard to get past that. But you know, for us, I think what really kind of the straw that broke the camel's back is we had 3 officers that were shot a couple of years back, and he pled him out pled the guy that shot him, 3 officers, to 45 years. And we were really disgusted with that, you know, because to Joe's own point, and he had said something in the interview, he goes, every decision that come down, my name is on the door, it's my decision.
Well, let me say this. I had a capital murder hearing that was done, not in front of a jury, in front of a judge. And essentially, I kind of had to prove my case, essentially. And so I called witnesses, and I put witnesses on who said, the guy that's in that photograph in these 2 different locations, was my student, and I coached that athlete, and I know who that is, and that's him. I ended up leaving, doing defense work, had the investigator approach me in the hallway a few months ago and I said, hey, what happened to that case? She was on the defense side, I was the prosecutor. I said, what happened to that case? And she said, you didn't hear? He dismissed it. I said, what do you mean he dismissed it? That guy was effing guilty. And she says, oh, I know he was. And they dismissed it for lack of evidence, I think is what they said.
This is
Bullshit.
we're still talking about Joe, right?
We're still talking about Joe.
The reason I say
But let me finish real quick.
I'm going to let you finish, but I'm finding it. Go ahead.
Dismissed this case and told the public that there wasn't enough evidence to prove it, which is complete crap because I proved it with limited witnesses. And so you want to hire me back, Joe, to prove that case? I'll prove that case. Hire me back. We'll re-indict that son of a bitch and I'll prove it.
It seems like they do that a lot. Insufficient evidence thing. I mean, and no one knows. You know what I mean? Because people take him as at his word, and as we're supposed to. Oh, he's a professional. They should know, and therefore there wasn't enough. Unless you're the victim's family or whatever. However it is. But to me, they use that, and when you say it enough, you're like, wait a minute. Now there's a pattern. Just like what he's saying with those 3 officers. That was blatantly obvious. Like, this is total bullshit that you did that. Every officer sees this.
Yeah.
And members of the community, not all good, may say, well, if that's all they're going to get, maybe I'll pop a few rounds off, right?
Well, we just had one where, not to get off on tangent, there's a story I just saw. There were some kids that taunted a police officer, drove up next to him, pointing their guns at him, like, hey, come get us. Turned into a chase. They crashed. And one of them got killed, and the other 2 there were 3. I guess there were 3 in there. So when have we ever had that?
Deterrence and consequence have to be a big part of it. But the reason I was smiling when you talked about that is because I wrote down some of the things that he was rattling off to Dylan Collier, who we had as a guest, and we appreciate that. Dylan was a very nice man and talked to us. And so he said he has the highest conviction rate on murders in 13 years. This is what Joe says. He says he's reduced the backlog by 22%.
Yeah, but he also couldn't tell Commissioner's Court what formula he used and if it was the same thing.
Yeah, but this is all part of it. And he says he has the highest felony DWI rate in years. So
He does? How many DWIs has he picked up? I didn't even know that. No, I'm kidding. That's a bad joke. I have joke Tourette's.
I don't know. The other categories. 254 categories.
I don't know if those numbers are true. I have no idea.
Well, I would say
it's the same way with the chief's crime stats. What's his formula?
Well, I mean, to the point with these numbers was the Commissioner's Court when they asked him what was the formula, and he said, I don't have that for you right now.
I have a formula.
Yeah.
1 case plus 1 case is 2 cases. Yeah. If you get rid of a case, that's 2 case minus 1 case. Then you have 1 case left. That's kind of the formula.
Yeah.
So plus minus?
Right. This is the formula for the police department, right? They'll put out, like, it used to be the Uniform Crime Report. It switched to something else now. But what they'll do is they'll do, like, murders up 7%, down 15%, whatever. But it's on a 12-month cycle. So that the minute that the month pops, like here we are in June, if there was 9 murders that last year and now it's June, all of a sudden the murder rate goes down.
Wow.
You see, so it's all just kind of smoke and mirrors. It's a shell game, right? So people have to delve in a little bit and say, well, if you have the highest conviction rate on murders in 13 years, tell us what those murders were. But he won't, because he's pleading them out or dumping them or whatever the case is. And people are taking these cases, and it's just kind of misrepresenting what is actually going on in the DA's office. And to our earlier point, I think we've lost so many people. I want to say the number originally was 18 that they lost that were all experienced trial lawyers. I think it's gone up since then.
I think so. I mean, I can just tell you, as a former prosecutor, I go around to these counties as a defense attorney, and I see people that I worked with as prosecutors. They're now defense attorneys, or they're prosecutors in different counties, working for different prosecutors.
But herein lies the problem, and I don't want to remember your point, please, because I just thought of this when you talked about Joe hired you back. Well, I know you're making more money now than you would as a prosecutor there, and a lot of people are going, why would I reduce my livelihood over here to come back? Now, you would have to have a true calling to say, I want to get back in there and do this right.
You can make me a prosecutor pro tem, and I can be a defense attorney and the prosecutor on that one specific case, but he would have to recuse himself.
I didn't know that. But, you know what I'm saying? Therein lies the problem.
Yeah.
Like, because, I talk about Nico, I joke with him all the time. because we'll send an article to each other, and Willie Nee, Willie Nee.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
So we're on the same thread, and it's usually about Joe, and then we'll put LaHood for DA, and they, of course.
I bet that's a very interesting text thread.
Oh, it's yeah, and we go back and forth, and it's always Nee for sheriff or something, because he ran before. But that therein lies that, well, now he's got his own firm. Why would he leave that? He'd lose money to go back into the,
sometimes
DA
money's
levels.
important, but sometimes there's bigger things than money, right? But I mean, at the end of the day, it does have to be a calling, right? You have to feel like you need to do something that's going to have some substantive stuff and or impact. And San Antonio, for whatever reason, the voters, the people that live in this city, just seem disinterested in going to the polls.
Yeah.
In making a clear choice based on what has been researched, as opposed to what Fox News tells them or CNN tells them or whatever the local news tells them. But my where I was going with this is, after they left, KSAT did a review, of course, and then they were talking about exit interviews, and the story was about the toxic environment at the DA's. And several people, in fact, one of the judges that has your previous seat, Melissa Sines, I've never met her, and she was talking about a former chief, or maybe she still is the chief there. Her name is Melly. I won't give her last name. It's in the news, but and it was just talking about, they're using words like this, operates her division based on favoritism. She lies, she gossips, she's unapproachable. Those are really tough words, for somebody that's the head of a division, where a sitting judge is now going back and saying, they contacted her after she was on the bench. She says, I stand by everything that I put in there because it's all true. And so this isn't just necessarily an attack on her. Other people said it was a hostile, toxic environment. There was harassment, lack of accountability, and communication. One said policies were never in writing. Favoritism exists everywhere. And so first, let me make the point that these are the exact same things that's happening in the San Antonio Police Department.
Okay.
So this is, and probably in the Bexar County Sheriff's Department, and probably other places. So this is starting to be a cultural phenomenon here. But when you start looking at things like this under this administration, right, under this district attorney's administration, you have to wonder, because, the head of the agency doesn't know everything that's going on, but when it's brought to their attention, to their first chairs, to their division heads, whatever, somebody should probably say, hey, what's going on? What are we not doing correctly? So as a previous judge and as a previous prosecutor and now as a successful defense attorney, what's your opinion on things like this? Like, if you're an elected official running the largest prosecutorial entity in Bexar County, and you have what people are openly telling you, many respected attorneys too, are openly telling you there's a problem there.
There is a problem, and I think that's why I've been vocal about it. And to be certain, it's put myself in vulnerable positions. I'm calling out the DA, and I still have to go into that courthouse as a defense attorney, and I still have to drive the streets of Bexar County, and I'm calling out judges that I don't think are doing their job effectively. I will say that Judge Sines is doing a great job. I did run, and at the same time she did. The judge that beat me, the Zumba, eventually got reprimanded by the Judicial Conduct Board. She had 1,600 cases in limbo, just did a terrible job, and eventually they came out with an opinion that said she didn't even have the ability to do her job because she didn't know the law. So how scary is that?
That's terrible.
Scary. So I'm happy that Judge Sines is on the bench. Whether it was me or her, I'm happy she's there, and she's doing a good job. I think the issue is the leadership is not there. The training is not there. There are promises to support prosecutors, but he's not really getting their backs. He cannot fill the positions. There are misdemeanor prosecutors that are being hired brand new, being put in a misdemeanor court by themselves. So
oh my God,
they're not taught how to look at a case, how to examine a case, how to use their discretion. And the ones that have the training, that are able to see a case for what it is, are not given the discretion to use their ability to dismiss a case. They're just not being backed up. And I will say this, when I said put it to a vote, I can't remember how many views that one got, maybe 4,000. This recent one that I said, enough of Judge Huff and Mr. Puff, That one got almost 50,000 views.
Yeah.
So it's resonating with people. And I think out of maybe the 10 videos that I've come after the DA's office and Joe and the misdemeanor chief and all that stuff, out of maybe 100,000+ views, and I'm going to be generous, I'll double the number of people that have commented in support of Joe. I'll double it, and I'll say 2.
Well,
I mean, I have gotten
I've read a lot of your
maybe
comments.
one
Yeah.
comment out of all of these posts that have been supportive of Joe. And let me tell you, the prosecutors in that office, for the most part, I think, back me up, because they certainly don't flip me off or say, "What are you doing? You're an idiot."
I would guess, like he and I are with what we're doing, there's a lot of people, because we get it all the time, like, hey, thanks for saying what you said. Because there's people that either are not like us to be able to stand up. They have the good people, good intentions, but they're not confrontational. And then you have, just other people that don't feel like they have the experience or whatever. But with us, I mean, it's mostly on the law enforcement side. Speaking of TikTok, I get a bunch of stupid asses commenting.
Oh, for sure.
On the things that we have, because he takes clips from things like this, and obviously they'll just look at the clip. They won't look at the whole context of how it was said, and they get some cop hater that says something stupid. Nick said he wanted me to interact with him, and I have every once in a while, but sometimes I don't have the energy.
Yeah.
Because I tell people to fuck themselves, at this point, because a lot of them are
That
really.
would make for a really good TikTok.
Yeah.
right?
No.
I mean, they're
should have
really
more TikTok.
stupid things, right? Yeah, I need to, but then I can't. I have to have the last word. So there I am, like, what did he say? And I don't need that in my day or anything.
I'll tell you, I think for the most part, if you're on point and you're speaking the truth, you don't get it. You don't get that much. I have very few people that have gone far the other way that I've had to just ignore. I don't think he's ever going to step down. He's not going to step down. I wish that he would. Look, if he was to step down, I'll step up for a year and a half.
Why
and
is he
not run.
saying he's not going to run again?
Because he's going to lose the primary.
Yeah, he knows his
gonna
he
lose.
knows his ship is sunk, and
knows.
he's not a dumb.
So is it time for
him?
a Republican to step up?
I don't think so. I mean,
But you put another clown, which would be another Democrat, in the friggin' chair.
Well,
You
I'll
get
say
the same
this. Look,
circus.
I'll push back a little bit. There are good Democratic judges. There are smart Democratic judges that I think could do a hell of a lot better than him.
So Rangel, I think he brought up his name.
I think he's formulated an exploratory committee that's going to raise money to determine whether
I like
he
it.
should run.
I've
I like
read it
Judge
as
Rangel.
before.
I think it's an interesting political play because when you announce, if you're a district court judge and you say you want to run for DA, you lose your bench right then and there, and you got to give up your bench.
Susan Reed did that, right?
She was the DA when I came
You
in.
did a long time.
She was, but she was a judge before that. I don't know if she announced and had to step down. But look, I'll say this. I'm a fan of Judge Rangel. I am. His dad supported me, even though they were both Democrats, and his dad was very kind to me. So I know he's a hell of a lot better than Joe.
But that's why I brought up, even with Joe's age, there's old school Democrats, and they're I don't know if they consider blue dog Democrats, but like your uncle.
Yeah, I think he was more of a kind of a blue dog.
Right,
Democrat.
but what we have now, and that's why I mentioned, I believe it's important to mention the Rent Collective. You have your Democrats, and then you have your leftists. And I believe what's going on now, and especially being guided by the Rent Collective, Joe wasn't left enough. So he had to be guided by this group out of Austin to do, because a lot of it, when you talk about, we're talking about prosecuting, things and obviously doing it fairly and whatever. Their whole agenda was basically just keep minorities out of jail and prison. They didn't give a shit what the fallout was. Just keep, because they had that leftist ideology that we're just putting all the minorities in jail, and I feel better if they're not. That was that side of it, and that's what we're seeing. So I don't mind Rangel as long as he, regardless of his party, he just follows the
Nico
law,
was
which is
a
what I've
Democrat.
seen. Right.
So
yeah.
we can't We can't throw these broad strokes. I mean,
Well,
there's
I've gotten to that point, and I know what you're saying. I'm not disagreeing with you. I know you didn't, definitely, but I don't have any faith in that, especially with what we just saw and what we've been seeing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
Willie and I had a conversation where, we talk, and we don't always see things exactly the same way. One of the things I grew up in El Paso, and I came here for the job of being a police officer, right? I came here to join the academy, or I was accepted in the academy to attend the academy, right? And what I was telling him is this city has always been very Democrat. It's always been Democrat heavy. There's never been a time. In fact, I couldn't even find, when we were interviewing mayoral candidates, I couldn't even find one example of a mayor that had ever been a Republican. I couldn't. And as far back as it went. Maybe there was, and I just missed it, but I couldn't. What I was telling Willie is that San Antonio, because I have friends that are in police departments all over the country through either work or college or whatever it was, and they don't have it as good as us. And I've always said that the people of San Antonio, heavily Democratic, have always been the most supportive of their police department. It's been amazing to me, and I just can't lose sight of the fact that those same people have always supported the San Antonio Police Department to the highest order. Now it's changing a little bit with the national noise and all of the stuff. But for the most part, the good people of San Antonio, which are good people,
We are good people.
have supported the police department. So, do I like what some of these far progressive left people are doing? No, I really don't. But I can't have not gotten to the point, and I don't want to get to the point where I just see the world like that.
Yeah.
And so, those are just things that's important to remind ourselves a little bit about those things.
And not only that, but again, both as prosecutors or police officers, one of the most crippling things is not letting them use their discretion in backing them up when they do make decisions.
Discretion is undervalued, and it's tough because, here I am talking to a former judge and a former attorney, or still an attorney, but a former prosecutor and now a defense attorney. I was mentioning to you off camera, not everybody that a police officer encounters has to go to jail. It just doesn't have to. But now, because of policies and body cams and things like that, they're going to get in trouble if they don't. Because there are life's lessons that police officers can give. I was 18, 19 years old in El Paso. I was working at a Taco Bell. Never told this story to anybody outside of maybe 2-3 people. Stayed after work, had a few beers. Drinking age was 19 back then. And I was driving home. And I had a couple of drinks, a couple of beers, and 2 cars on the road, me, dipshit me, and an officer. I have my brights on, the officer hits the lights, and being a dumbass young kid, I hit him back, pulls me over, pull into a bank parking lot. He says, "How much you been drinking tonight?" I said, "I think I've had a few, maybe too much." He looks at me, he goes, "Is that a bag in the back? You go to UTEP?" I go, "Yes, sir." He goes, "What are you gonna do with your life?" I said, I don't even know yet, sir." He said, "Well, you ain't gonna do it right this way." Pull in that parking lot. He looked at my driver's license. I was maybe like 5 minutes away, puts me in the car, takes me home.
Wow.
He said, "This is your one shot. You do with it what you want." If I'd have been arrested that night, I would have never been a police officer. So is discretion a good thing? Of course it's a good thing. Have I tried to repay that back over the years? Hell yeah, I've tried to repay that back.
Yeah. But now you would, let's say today's world, an officer, for one, would be afraid to do that.
Yeah.
But if he did do that, he'd get in trouble for doing that.
Well, I had to deal with my dad, and that was worse than
Anything else.
For sure. My dad too. I mean, there were times as a prosecutor where, you'd see some kid come in and when I first was a prosecutor and I'd read a file, maybe it was not an obvious crime like DWI or something, I'd read it and I'd go, "Oh, damn, that was a crime?" I'm like, I did that.
Yeah.
Throwing eggs at your buddy's car, right, on Halloween or stuff like that. So, or even something stupid like stealing something. I would scare the crap out of these defendants with permission of the defense attorney, and I'd have them go do community service hours, and I'd dismiss the case, and I'd give them that one shot if they deserved it. They don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
The DA does not allow their prosecutor to do these types of alternative dismissals.
And that's a policy statement, because you had said in one of your TikToks that, I don't remember exactly how you phrased it, I'm paraphrasing, so give me a little latitude here, but they got to do 30 days in jail. Or they're like, and I'm just like, what dumbass said that?
That's a policy.
Yeah, so that's a policy, but again, what is that policy?
It's a policy for, and to be clear for people that are listening, you have an old woman who criminal trespassed at the home that her husband's being taken care of, and she's been told before, don't come back with this attitude, don't come back for whatever reason. There are a number of situations in this world where any fact pattern that you can come up with can happen. And it's not beyond the realm of possibilities to have somebody who picks up a charge that says, I'm old, I've never been in trouble before, I don't want to be on supervision for a year with deferred, which is better than a conviction. And just to say, well, oh gosh, if you want to do jail, well, then you have to do 30 days minimum, regardless of what the facts are. Yeah. That's ridiculous. A range of punishment is there for a reason. Murder, range of punishment, right? 5 to 99 or life. Well, imagine the little old woman that euthanizes her husband because he's in such pain. Is it murder? Yeah. But, there's a range of punishment for a reason. And to ignore the facts and just put a blanket policy out is idiotic.
And that happens, and it happens a lot in different places, and it goes back to people now taking their ideological positioning and pushing that on. Because I really I want to talk about this to a couple of judges in a minute, but when I'm talking about Joe, and when I hear these things, I'm like, man, if what you do, what you feel that you need to do, does not belong in the district attorney's office. Go be a defense attorney. Go work for the ACLU. Go work for whatever you want to, but don't do it here. Because what would happen if police officers started taking their political ideologies and thoughts and start invoking them on the streets? I'm going to put this guy in jail because he's this, or her in jail because she's that. No, right? We can't do that. The best advice I ever got from a deputy chief that was a friend of mine, but had to chew my ass a couple of times, says, your job is to be apolitical. Here, you put that uniform on, you are apolitical. And I never forgot that because he was spot on. But other people forget that. Heads of agencies. We have the sheriff that does whatever he does, which is bizarre to me. We have the chief of police that, sometimes yields to that kind of direction from the people that keep him in play, in job, in work. And then we have the district attorney and so on. And then, so my point is, when there was the exit interview there were some judges that kind of came up in some of this stuff. One was Spiedland. Right, she came up. I was just doing some research, right? Yeah,
Rosie Spiedland Gonzalez.
Yeah, Spiedland. Yeah, Gonzalez. I don't know what her name is, but I just know it's Spiedland. And the whole thing was, I looked and she had put up a pride flag, which is fine. I don't care what you want to do. But then I guess there was some insinuations about her having some sort of bias. Right, that was what I found, and then ultimately it was disproven. But when I start seeing flags like that, and I can get people to pride, but at what point does this stop? Does a German American put a German flag in there? Does a Irish American?
Hey, I would put my Kansas City Chiefs flag in there if I win again.
Yeah. So those are certain things. I remember the one guy that was there, I think it was Kazan, always had the Texas flag, but we're in Texas, right? And so at what point does this stop? And then she had made a comment at a pride after this actor was killed here a couple of weeks ago. She wanted it to be a hate crime, and then I think McManus walked it back. And then the first impression I got is she had made a statement, and I'm paraphrasing, to the chief, that she didn't feel safe in her own community, that she knew the SAPD had a cultural problem, and that she had served on the Citizens Advisory Board, which is 3 citizens that sit in every disciplinary hearing, and that she felt that there was a problem and she didn't feel safe in her own community.
Didn't feel safe from who?
Well, that's just it. She didn't specify, but if she's talking to the chief and saying, you have a problem, I've been on that board, are you insinuating that you're afraid of police officers?
I take it as especially jumping on that bandwagon because they got a lot of flack from that all over on that, especially during Pride Month, that she's saying she doesn't feel, she's jumping on that bandwagon. She wanted a hate crime charged on this suspect that killed that he was gay.
Why is any judge advocating for what?
Well, because she is. Because she is. It's so easy to see that I don't care about her status whatsoever.
I don't either.
Point, but it's so easy to see. So she jumps on that bandwagon, and I don't feel safe. That's the easiest thing for people to say.
But then go be an advocate for the LGBTQ community and go do what you have to do. But I didn't take the comments to be in that regard. I think she was telling McManus, your cops are dangerous. And I think that's a huge problem because where I'm going with this, it's just taking me a minute to get there. Tell me you're not biased. If an officer is now testifying in your court and you think we're all crazy or all going to be harmful or abusing our authority, how can you not be biased?
It's a very good question. It's pretty insightful, and I don't blame you for getting to the conclusion that you've gotten
I'd
to.
love to have her on. I just don't think Willie would go for it.
Well, that'd be a fun one.
Oh, it'd be awesome.
I will say this. I have no issue with her being gay. My son's gay and I love him. I do have an issue with expressing your own independent views inside of courtroom. I didn't agree with putting a flag in your courtroom. That's not the point of your job. You're not there to advocate for any particular position. You're supposed to be neutral. You're supposed to be the most patient, inconspicuous, accommodating person, knowledgeable in the courtroom. And that's your role as a judge. I mean, I'm joking, but what prevented me from putting a Kansas City Chiefs flag in there? And every time if I figure out a defense attorney or a prosecutor is maybe a Raiders fan, wow, okay.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
But if you became the president of the NFL, it wouldn't be wise to put up your Chiefs flag. You see what I'm saying? That's the point I'm making.
When you're the commissioner, you don't be rocking that.
Because one of your TikToks that I saw today, it's pretty cool. The Lady Justice, you had it in the background, and amongst so many other people speaking, Lady Justice again is supposed to be blind. She's got the skills to balance, out all the evidence and things like that, and we're moving away from that so much. The issue again with LGBTQ, and as you mentioned with your son, hey, I don't know how my kids are going to turn out, but they'll be my children. And my issue is that, like he said, being biased to say, because of that, therefore this needs to happen, and swayed the chief, tried to sway him in doing that. In fact,
he walked it back.
Yeah, not just her. I think it was from the government, the city government, that said, hey, dude, that probably wasn't the right thing to say.
First, and the chief doesn't make the call on a hate crime. That would be the district attorney's office.
That's true.
And it was so early in the investigation.
I had told Jason before we started filming, I said, and again, I look at it a little different. I'm just saying, okay, you were upset that this actor was killed. The actor had been a problem in the area for a while, right? And I don't know the actor, but I know there was a lot of people that said he was always kind of a problem. It wasn't just those two. He was arrested or removed in Austin a couple of weeks before that. It had nothing to do with him being gay. Just how he was a problem. And
he was a voice actor, by the way.
He's an actor. None together. You're an actor. It's hard, right? Get a voice or don't get a voice. But at the end of the day, I was telling Jason, I said, she's sitting out there upset about this one murder, but I was telling you, I said, but there's 135 plus murders here every year. Do you not advocate for the rest of them, these victims? And that's what it seems like to me. It's like it's a special interest kind of rally or crying point, and I don't appreciate that, because I think everybody that dies in this city, even if they're turds or not, if you're going to come out and say this is a tragedy, then every one of them is a tragedy, and then, but that's not the only judge. So Yolanda Huff, who I also don't know, right? But I do know your TikTok talked about the canons of law, right? And it's like, she's coming out accusing her opponent of being racist.
And this person hadn't even announced to run against Huff yet. And Huff used I heard some things, and I heard that this person said I was vulnerable. And so she said, I thought long and hard before I posted this, and ultimately says, gosh, I'm so awesome. Everybody knows how awesome I am. And the only reason you would come after me must because of the color of my skin. So therefore that makes you racist. And she called this person a racist and misspelled it, by the way. Misspelled it.
Well, I'd love to see that person file some sort of defamation suit.
What's interesting is I posted a TikTok on it, and the person she was talking about had no idea that the post had even occurred yet, and it came across her feed, and she called me because we used to work together, and she just said, thank you for that. And had she really, it really goes back to judicial canons. It goes back to impartiality. It goes back to, you don't even want to do things that give the appearance of impropriety or impartiality. So not even the appearance of it. So going out there and making comments that could be construed as against law enforcement when you have to call balls and strikes as a judge, to me, I don't know how. I think somebody ought to look at those canons a little closer as it relates to the comments that she made, and certainly the comments that Judge Huff made, calling somebody a racist, in my opinion, has violated those canons. But that's up for the.
I think that person should file a defamation suit against her, and I think that person, if she hasn't already, go file some sort with the Bar Association, because I know there's a subdivision for judges. But this is what this judge said about herself. And I just love this. Like, man, wow. Like, what are you smoking? If I were not doing a great job on the bench, I could understand. But I know that I am doing an awesome job as a judge. So Maura picked me to run against because, I guess that's the person, because she thinks I'm an easy target because I'm black. But the whole part of it is that I'm doing an awesome job. Isn't that the same person that's had 2 or 3 court reporters, a bunch of coordinators? Like, nobody wants to work for you.
I'm not sure how many have cycled through that court, but I certainly have been in that court, and I have to go into that court probably within the next week or two. So we'll see how that goes.
Well, tell her that the Blu Wolf Podcast says that, we disagree with they're doing an awesome job because because the people that should be telling you you're doing an awesome job is everybody else.
That's right. Not you. And you know what's interesting is Lauren is married. I think she's still married to a beautiful woman. And I imagine that Hispanic Lauren Zamora, who has got a beautiful wife, is a racist against black people.
Well, I would say with something like that.
And I know, let me just say, I know Lauren, and Lauren's fantastic. I've worked with her. She's smart. I'm not here supporting anybody in their candidacy. I'm just supporting her as a person. And I've been in Judge Huff's court. I will go in that court and the prosecutor will say, okay, I want a jail offer. My client wants a jail offer. And they'll say, well, in our opinion, 30 days would be appropriate, 45 days. And I would say, I agree with you. But Judge Huff won't allow us to do that. Judge Huff only does the maximum. Those are the words of the prosecutor in her court. You know, I mean, I had a guy that was in a Mexican prison. He picked up a DWI. I think he was either back in Mexico, held for a year in prison, went to trial for robbery, was found not guilty, brought him back here to address his DWI. You know, had he been here, any judge would give him credit for the time served, and yes, you admitted guilty and judgment satisfied. 180 days, it's the max. This guy spent a year in prison and was not guilty. And I brought him back and said, Judge, he wants to plead guilty. We have a deal with the state and it's for this amount of time. And she busted it and she did above what we had as an agreement. You can't do that as a judge. You're busting our agreement. But my guy was so tired of being in jail and he was going to get out anyway and he didn't care. And he says, dude, I'm going to kill myself in here. I got to get out of here. Isn't that sad?
Yeah. Well, my point on a lot of these things is these people have a lot of sway or influence on what happens to people in their lives. And if she did lose somebody to DWI, my heart goes out to her. But you should not be a judge in a court that handles DWIs. You know, go be Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. Go support them. Go do those kind of things. You know.
When I was going to say about what she said, I mean, you know, so speaking about judges, you were a judge. Obviously, you. I always like the fact that, you know, if I'm going to speak about baseball and say coach it, I better have been a baseball player. You know what I mean? So you were a judge. You were in those shoes. Regardless if she thinks that, she should have enough restraint not to say it. You know what I mean? So, I mean, because you as even now, you want to be careful about what you say.
I do.
As a judge, you have to be careful about what you said. But when you say stupid things like that, and especially bring in racism, which is, everybody's exhausted by that word, by the way.
Yeah.
It's kind of lost its meaning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And because that's almost the only go-to that anybody can throw back. They have nothing else left. Oh, but you're racist. Yeah. You know, and I've gotten to the point, I'm like, you know what? Okay, I am. I can't be because I'm Hispanic, but whatever you think. Let's move on past that.
Yeah.
Call me another name or whatever it may be. But, you know, and she's not the only one that's like that. We have that, and people that are, you know, whether it be judges or attorneys that are pushing those agendas. Because, I don't know, and you can tell me, none of this, you have, how far back where you have never heard things like that?
Not that far back.
You know what I mean?
Gosh, I guess there's always been crazy judges along the way.
Sure.
You know,
but even they knew not to say things like that.
Yeah, I mean, at least they had the restraint to not post on her private Facebook page while also asking for donations without having expressed who her campaign treasurer was. I mean, she screwed up.
It's not just judges. I mean, you see that now in, you know, judicial bodies at the state level and at the federal level. I mean, you see a blatant disrespect for anyone else that doesn't see it the way you do. But I think it just kind of erodes away things like racism when you use it whenever you feel like it, because there's no consequence to use it. I don't know the person that's running against her, but I guarantee you that's not the reason she's running against you. She's running against you, if she is, because I don't think she's announced yet, she's running against you because you're probably not doing a good job. and she will think she can do a better job. That's the way the system is set up.
How it works.
Or it, maybe not. Maybe she just wants to be a judge.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean regardless,
Well, what
I mean,
she's
it's her
saying is
right.
there's other judges that she could run in. That remember, like she's saying, these are going to be vacated, so she didn't have to.
So
make
why
the
go
time.
against me? Okay,
Right. So there's a little context to it. But you know, Jason,
It's just so myopic. It's ridiculous.
I have a question. Like I see these things, and we don't get judges. You know, and then the other day, you know, we had some people that were protesting what's going on in the country, especially you know with the immigration stuff.
No king's protest.
And we
My wife is from Guadalajara, Mexico. You know?
You know, my mother was from Germany, so at the end of the day, we all had relatives that came in. My dad was a soldier, met her over there, but you know, went through the process, and we won't get into that spirited debate. I don't look like a German, but I do speak German.
Hey, man, my dad's middle name was Adolf, so.
Well, a good friend named me, but Adolfo, so it's a Hispanic.
That's better.
not the tyrant. But so the other day, our city leaders, right? I use the word leaders very, very loosely, but they are in leadership positions. So it was the mayor of San Antonio, one of only four-term mayors. So that says something, right? So Ron Nirenberg, who are these? So obviously Henry Cisneros, McAllister, and then the lady.
Lila Cockrell?
Lila Cockrell. And your uncle was a mayor, right?
He was for a short stint, yeah.
So, and again, the point we were making earlier is that people are now in these high-level positions, elected position, and now they're using their political mindsets to influence their citizens. This is what the outgoing mayor of San Antonio said. First and foremost, I want to acknowledge the anger and frustration that's out there with the federal government's crude interpretation of immigration law and cruel interpretation of human rights. I emphasize that I understand the serious fatigue that the federal government is causing within our community. Well, I'm a part of the community and I don't suffer from any fatigue. You know, there's a lot of people in San Antonio that don't feel that way. Should the chief administrator of the city of San Antonio say things like that? Is it now okay to say that?
Well, apparently he felt it was, and it's a difficult issue for sure. And
I totally agree. It's a
Well,
difficult
again,
issue.
it's one of those things. Can you think that? Because no doubt he would, because he is a leftist, no doubt. But should you say that and sound like you're on the side of the people? Almost like, I understand why you might do this, because the whole point is to prevent him from doing any damage to the city.
yeah.
You know, shut the fuck up.
And I thought the
and be a
chief did a good
professional
job.
about it.
You know, actually, I don't think he does a good job in a lot of areas, but I thought he did a good job.
Yeah, he
Respect
didn't
your right.
do
Respect
that.
your
He
right
didn't
to
do
do
that.
that.
What do you think about this, right? Maybe I'm a little pie in the sky, but why can't an independent ever win? I mean, if now would be, to me, it seems like a perfect time.
Money,
They never have any chance.
They just never did.
money.
Money.
Because, you know, you've had like all the way back to the 80s.
Money.
You had
You're right.
Ross
Money.
Perot, right? I mean, I remember
remember
that,
him.
right? I'm probably
Come on, America.
Yeah.
Yeah, paint that fence.
Yeah.
I remember Ross.
You know, and Ross had a lot of momentum. But, you know, even with the money that he had at the time, he was like a billionaire, right? Now there's like billionaires on every block, right? I think we have 10 of them in San Antonio. You know, but you know what? Everyone thought but you can't beat the political machine, you know, because the
Which is so
Republicans and the
polarized.
Democrats have so much money and influence that an independent gets crushed.
We're so polarized. I don't think people want,
I know, it's depressing.
even though they talk about working with people on the other side. And I mean, and it's moving further and further away, I believe. I've always found it funny because now we've got what we call people the left, and they call us the extreme right. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And I do believe we were speaking about the voters in San Antonio because we have a bunch of elderly people, Hispanic people who, you know, historically vote Democrat.
Sure.
If you actually sat down for a discussion with them and asked them what their beliefs were, they would pretty much be on the right side. Right. Because a lot of them are kind of ignorant to what's going on.
I've heard that.
You know?
I think that tends to hold true.
I believe that in a lot of ways. But
Well, you were a judge, and I guess I would be remiss that's not saying this, is that, you know, the judges do a great job, but it's like anything else. It's their staff that helps them get there, right? You have a coordinator, and then you have a court reporter, and then you have a clerk, and then you have all these people that allow you to get up there and conduct the business of the justice system, right?
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's always important to remember the people that make the wheels turn.
Man, I had a rock star staff for sure. Yeah. They did great. I think another thing that just is so frustrating is the judges and some of the judges that we've talked about, it's more about notoriety and getting followers and putting on a show.
That was a bold TikTok that you put out on that. Like, stop being so full of yourself,
I mean, look, it is, and I still have to go into that court, right? And that's not an easy.
We get to go on with a little swag now, right?
Well, listen, they could find any reason to hold me in contempt, but I guess my point is it's fun watching judges dispense justice. It's fun listening to guys try to wiggle out of the shit that they got caught doing and, I got kids. It's fun watching that stuff. But when you have judges that are taking 75% of the plea, talking about stories and spinning yarns and dressing somebody down, everybody in that courtroom knows it's not for the defendant, it's not for the prosecutor or the defense attorney, it's for the audience that's watching it.
And it slows the process down, right?
It completely slows the process down.
You're trying to take pleas, you have a bunch of pleas, which means somebody's just going to basically plea, and then they have to go through the judge has to say, well, is this of your own accord, is this what's final, and you're this, and all these different things. And then they go into this long bullshit tirade, and the people behind them are waiting. And it just takes so much time. Where visiting judges traditionally come in and just like, you guys already covered this? Here you go, have a great day. And it is. It's just. I'd have to ask you one more question, and I know I'm hogging a little bit. I'll let you get right to it, Willie. But I love the TikTok. I love the TikTok that you said there's a particular court that sucks the soul out of you.
That was the 187th.
187th, right?
That was the 187th.
And that's the TikTok.
That's the TikTok.
No, the YouTube lady.
YouTube, yeah, Judge Board.
So I just thought it was interesting that you said, I got to go back into that court.
I do.
And I'm just interested. I'd love to follow up with you to see if they're going to be brazen enough to say, I didn't appreciate that comment, or do it kind of under their breath. And
you may be jealous that you have more followers.
Make you wait
than her YouTube.
Judge, if you haven't figured this out by now, I'm going to be sucking your followers. That's my whole point. I'm playing your game with you.
Yeah.
And that's my point. A courtroom should be open. Anybody can come into that courtroom. They can sit in there. There's a reason there's a bar. And there's a reason why the audience sits there and the lawyers and the prosecutors and the judge are the other side of that bar. There's a reason why the judge will tell the court reporter, we are on the record, we are off the record. There's privileged information, there's medical information, there's information that could get somebody hurt. She's put me in danger, by the way. I had to withdraw from a case, and my client told me the night before that he wasn't showing up. I'm like, well, you better be sick and you better show up with a doctor's note. Sure enough, didn't show up. And I went in, and after months of having tried to convince this guy to take my advice and not having been paid, I filed a motion to withdraw, which is what you're allowed to do. And so, and it was broadcast on YouTube. I didn't know this at the time. She doesn't inform everybody that I'm putting all this stuff out there on YouTube. She granted she said, well, wait till he's in custody and we'll talk. I ended up granting my motion, but a few days later, I get a random text message from a number that I didn't recognize and a name that I didn't recognize, and it was a video of me asking the judge to withdraw. Somebody took that YouTube video, sent it to me, and said I should have effed your wife when I had the chance. So I knew who it was. It was the client, and it didn't take me long to figure it out, and he ultimately confessed to it. But my point is, she put me in danger. She put something out there that I would have been fine if he'd have been standing next to me. Okay, I'm going to say the same thing that I would have, but I firmly believe she is doing it for her own personal benefit, not for them meeting the ends of justice.
What was she saying? She wanted her mom to watch it or something.
Yeah, that was the main, because I sat in on that hearing when they said Harvard accused her from those three officers that were indicted for murder from the South Side. Mm-hmm. And I tell you what, man, they made really good cases. Wow.
Yeah, Jason Goss was a hell of an attorney.
Yeah, and Patrick Valentine did a lot of that.
Really good too.
But I tell you that the guy that took Daryl Harris's position at the time, he's not there anymore. He's very short-lived. Forget his name. He took Daryl Harris's position.
Conviction Integrity Unit or a different unit?
Yes. He was assigned right after Daryl Harris, and then he's gone now. He left. He did a good job. I was very impressed with him.
He wasn't there long at all.
Yeah, on the stand about what he was saying. But the issue was she would not grant them a continuance. You know what I mean? the defense asked for it, and he even asked for it because he just got assigned that position. He's like, hey man, I need time.
Yeah.
And that's a major case, mind you.
For sure.
You know, and we know the tactic, push back, push back, push back. She wasn't about to have that. Let's go to trial right now. Well, you know, the investigation probably still isn't completely done yet, you know, and thankfully, Judge Harrell.
Probably one of the worst places to have an agenda is a sitting judge, right? I mean, if you have an agenda, then you're going to put your own personal agenda ahead of what you should be doing correctly, and that's a terrible place to be. We're seeing that more and more.
You know, we're all human beings and we all have that ability to do that. And you know, I'm not saying there weren't times where my personal views might have bled into my decisions, but I really actively tried to not let that happen.
Well, you have to recognize it first, right? It sounds like you do. You have to say, hey, you know what? I got to take a step back because I think I'm about to let my feelings or my emotions start to govern what I shouldn't be letting it govern, right? So yeah, man, Willie, told you we cheap. You had an hour.
Yeah, no, I mean, we knew because obviously David had kind of put more of this together. We wanted to have a good conversation like I think we did today.
Well, I appreciate it.
And
anybody,
is there anything that you want to add that, you know, that
y'all just check me out. Call the Wolf.
Check out the TikToks. The TikToks are on point. Yeah. We can learn something from you. Right? We really can learn something from you.
There's some crazy one out there too. I mean, I dress up in a
up.
bat mask and a judge's robe, so I get a little
Keep
crazy.
speaking up. I mean, you know, obviously you're gaining ground, and we agree with most of it. There's nothing I don't, you know, so far that I see. So
I appreciate you guys. I appreciate what you did all those years being out there for us. Everybody runs away. You guys were the ones that ran in. So thank you for that.
Yeah. So if you need an attorney, call the Wolf. If you just have nothing better to do to watch a podcast, then watch this Blu Wolf podcast.
There we go.
Jason,
It was a pleasure.
Yeah, appreciate it.